astronomy was not possible until mathematics came along. And mathematics took the universal system that we see around us and began the gradual organization of it. That is, it did nothing to change the system, but to organize our concept of the system. It began to reveal to us the really wonderful universe in which we lived. It's gradually revealed to us that things were not accidental, that there were laws and rules governing practically every procedure and function of the universe. The combination, therefore, of mathematics and astronomy, added together, formed what has been called astro-theology. That is, religion based upon the supporting evidence of nature. In other words, it was possible to decide certain values, moral and otherwise, because of their symbolic place in the natural world around us. We began to realize, for instance, the very simple fact that there aren't many accidents in the functions of universal law. We began to realize the effects that follow causes, and also the timing of cycles. We began to develop the theory of protecting agriculture through knowing the seasons and all the different forms of planting and reaping came to our attention and were integrated into a pattern. It all added up to one simple fact. We were living in a wonderful universe ruled by something. Now, what it was ruled by was still a little dim, because the physical form of the universe seemed to be all that we could find out about it. But gradually there came to the realization of these people that the physical universe was a symbol, that the processes which exist and make the universe a symbol are invisible. And gradually, out of the contemplation of visible things, we began to recognize the need for invisible forces behind these things. We could see bodies, but we couldn't see the life in them. But we could find out something about it by watching its effects in the material world. We could not control completely our integration of the vastness of the universe, but we were able to gradually create a series of laws by which we could obey the simple phenomena of life. And out of this research, this thoughtfulness of primitive people, we have the moral code. The moral code is based firmly upon universal laws, laws that men never quite understood fully, but the results of which came to their attention every day, until finally they were forced to accept the causes because there was no other way of explaining the effects. So little by little, knowledge increased. So now we go back again to the problem that we started with, and that is mathematics and astronomy. Astronomy has passed through a great many different levels of insights and interpretations. Astronomy was originally the science of the anatomy and physiology and function of the solar system. It had to do with every process in which the natural laws of existence went into obvious operation within the consciousness of that part of life which man could comprehend. So the problem was to gradually discover some way of transforming a skeletal system to become the basis of a great theological mystery. The result was Astro-Theology, which was probably the first organization of man's religious beliefs. This organization was firmly established in mathematics and astronomy. And the graces which assisted under the heading of music and art have always been part of classical religions. All of these religious systems, therefore, became gradually integrated around astronomy, mathematics, and music. Now Homer, in a section of his writings called The Cave of the Nymphs, describes the initiation rituals of the ancient astro-theology. And we first point out and notice that the one great religious, astronomical, mathematical day was New Year's, the winter solstice. This was the beginning of the year for antiquity. At the beginning of the year, this solstice point was of the greatest and most basic importance. Well, I think we must also realize in studying this that practically every religion and esoteric system we have in the world today developed in the northern hemisphere. And all of the calculations that are made are based upon the precession of the equinoxes and, of course, the solar system of the year in the area of the northern hemisphere. At that time, we find the zodiac already fairly well known. We find that most of the symbols found in religion were also to be found in astronomy. We realize, for example, that the 72 elders of Israel were the 5-degree divisions of the circle of the zodiac. We know that the 12 signs became 12 apostles, 12 disciples, 12 leaders, and also that the course of time were associated with 12 major religious revelations. We find that almost every unit that has to do with man's survival is in some way mathematically keyed to the zodiac. Now, in the old time, and even later in the mystical writings of Jacob Boehme, the arrangement of the zodiac is slightly different from what we generally use in astronomy or astrology today. We still begin, technically, the zodiac with the sign of Aries. But whereas we usually think of this as placed on the eastern angle of a horoscope, in the ancient times the sign of Aries was placed in the midheaven. In other words, it was at the highest point, and that was the point of we might say, the beginning of the year, the New Year's ceremony, usually occurring between the 20th and the 25th or 27th of December. At this time, the sun was born again. It rose from the dead of the old year. It began to move northward, and in moving northward with its own strange power, began to release the life locked in the earth. So the ancients considered the sun as the principal symbol of deity. No ancient person of wisdom or insight ever thought of the sun as that being, but rather the mirror of it. To the Greeks, the sun god carried a shield, and this shield was the mirror of the sun. It was not the sun, but the sun was there as a symbol of order, life, resurrection, fertility, and inwardly of the illumination of the soul. Therefore the sun became an object of worship everywhere. In Egypt, for instance, in the course of the development of the doctrine of Akhenaten, the great reformer of Egyptian mysticism, the Aton, or sun, was the supreme symbol. This symbol in the Egyptian was a ball of light surrounded by radiant rays, each of the rays ending in the symbol of the human hand. Therefore the sun was radiating in all directions, lifting up everything that came in contact with, bringing death to life out of the earth. Now this seemed to be very interesting to most ancient people. It helped them to understand something about life which otherwise was too difficult for them. The sun also, whether we realize it or not, became a symbol of deity in early Christianity. It was definitely associated with the nimbus, the halo, and the radiance around the heads of saints. It was the symbol of spiritual light manifesting through the physical light of nature. The sun as a spiritual power brought enlightenment to the inner life, releasing the individual from ignorant superstition and fear. In the outer world, the sun was the generator of life and the regenerator of everything that man depended on for survival. Without the light of the sun, he could not live. Also, therefore, that part of the world where the sun was above the horizon, was the good part, the life part. Night was the dark part. Night was darkness, mystery, and death. Day was light, brightness, and wisdom. So that the life of the individual was gradually divided into these two hemispheres, the hemisphere of light and the hemisphere of darkness. Light became the symbol of growth and hope and wisdom. Darkness was a groping. Therefore, darkness became an appropriate symbol of ignorance. That which was ignorant lived in darkness. That which was wise lived in light. Now, how did the ancients understand ignorance? To the common people, ignorance was lack of formal education. To the priests of the mystery, ignorance was the lack of internal realization of good. Therefore, all of the changes that take place in the world, in the seasons and in the ages, in the great processional of the equinoxes, all these things had their equivalent within the person himself. He had his solstices and his equinoxes. He had all of the different planets of the system. He had all the different zones and spheres and degrees of the zodiac within his own constitution. And out of this came the great symbol of the grand man of the universe. This was very strongly emphasized in the Kabbalah.
I bet that genius. 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 I say God in self. Where else would he be? Created in the image of the Most High. See God in me. Look in the mirror, all I see is me. So I believe in the God in me. You can find me in the hive, buzzing with them bees, them Africanized killer bees. That's how it sounds when we breathe. Cipher knowledge, wisdom, understanding, wisdom. 1, 2, 3s. Rep that G's, throwing up that B's. Cause the G's is me, Jesus is me. That Genius. I that